I never intended to be a truck driver. I always pictured my life differently, maybe running a bar in a small town or tinkering with old cars in some forgotten garage. But life has a way of pushing you down roads you never thought you'd travel, and for me, that road was a long dark stretch of asphalt that seemed to never end. It all started with an invitation. I got a call one Friday night from an old buddy, Pete. We hadn't talked much since high school, but he sounded desperate, scared even. Said he needed a favor and that he'd pay me good money. I wasn't in a position to say no, not with bills piling up. So I agreed to meet him at a truck stop off I-90, out in the middle of nowhere. When I arrived, Pete was pacing nervously beside a semi. He looked worse for wear, dark circles under his eyes, his hands twitching like he'd been drinking too much coffee. Or maybe it was something else. "Thanks for coming, man," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. I need you to do a run for me. Just one. I can't do it myself." Something came up. He handed me the keys and a fat envelope of cash. "It's all yours. The route's simple, just take the back roads. Avoid the highways." I hesitated. Why the back roads? What's in the trailer? He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down like a buoy in a storm. Just don't open it, okay? You don't want to know." That should have been my cue to walk away, but curiosity has always been my downfall. I nodded, took the keys, and climbed into the cab. The first few hours were uneventful. Just me, the hum of the engine, and the endless stretch of road. The cab was old, smelled like stale cigarettes and spilled coffee, but it had character. I decided to switch on the radio, trying to drown out the quiet that seemed to press in around me. Static crackled, then a low, droning voice came through, broadcasting an old blues song that was so distorted it was barely recognizable. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement in the trailer. Just a shadow, a flicker. But when I looked again, there was nothing. My heart thudded in my chest, and I shook my head, laughing at myself for getting spooked so easily. Then, I noticed something strange. The radio began to cut in and out, but it wasn't static this time. It was a voice. A woman's voice, whispering. Her words were indistinct, garbled like she was speaking underwater. I fiddled with the dial, but it only got worse. "Pete, don't road alone." The words were cut off, swallowed by a high-pitched squeal that made me wince. I turned the radio off, my hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than before. The night stretched on, and the back road twisted and turned, pulling me deeper into the woods. I hadn't seen another car for miles. My headlights carved narrow tunnels of light through the darkness, and the trees seemed to close in on either side of me. That's when I saw it, a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I was relieved. Finally, another human being. But as the vehicle drew closer, my relief turned to unease. The headlights were too bright, blinding, and they seemed to flicker like an old fluorescent bulb. The car pulled up close, almost tailgating me. I could barely make out the outline of a driver. Just a shadow. Then, without warning, the headlights cut out completely. I blinked, confused. The road behind me was empty. The car had vanished. I slowed down, peering into the darkness, but there was nothing. Just the night and the road stretching back into the unknown. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. "Get it together," I muttered to myself, pressing down on the gas. An hour later, I saw a figure on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, maybe a deer or a shadow. But as I drew closer, I realized it was a man, standing perfectly still in the middle of nowhere. He wore a dark coat, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. As I passed, he turned his head slowly to follow the truck. I could feel his eyes on me, cold and unblinking. I glanced in the rearview mirror again, and he was gone. Just like that. I felt a chill run down my spine. The back of my neck prickled, and my hands were clammy on the steering wheel. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Then the CB radio crackled to life. A voice came through, soft and distorted. "Keep driving, driver. Don't stop. Don't pick him up." My heart skipped a beat. I grabbed the receiver, my hand trembling. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice coming out more scared than I'd intended. Silence. Then, a different voice, deeper, more urgent. "He's not what he seems. Don't let him in." I threw the receiver down and kept driving, my foot pressing harder on the gas. My mind was racing. Who were these people? What did they want? A sign loomed ahead, "Road closed, detour." I groaned, cursing under my breath. The detour sign pointed down an even narrower, darker road that snaked off into the woods. I didn't want to take it, but I had no choice. I turned down the road, my headlights flickering as I went. The trees seemed closer here, their branches hanging low, like they were reaching out for me. As I drove, the road seemed to twist and turn back on itself, like I was driving in circles. The GPS on the dashboard blinked, recalculating, then went dark. I tapped it, but it stayed off. The CB radio crackled again, but this time, it wasn't a voice. It was laughter. Low, guttural, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I felt like I was being watched, like something was in the cab with me, just out of sight. Then, I saw it again in the rearview mirror. The hitchhiker. Standing in the middle of the road, just staring. I didn't slow down this time. I floored it. The road twisted and turned, and my nerves were shot. I had no idea where I was. The clock on the dashboard had stopped. My hands were shaking on the wheel, and my mind was racing with thoughts of what could be in that trailer. I needed to know. Against every instinct screaming in my head, I pulled over. The truck hissed as it came to a stop. I grabbed a flashlight from the glove compartment, took a deep breath, and stepped out. The cold night air hit me like a slap in the face. I walked around to the back of the trailer, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. The whispering voice from the radio played over and over in my mind, a broken record I couldn't turn off. My hand shook as I reached for the latch. I paused for a second, listening. Nothing. Just the sound of my own ragged breathing. I pulled the latch up. And that's when I heard it. A low, rumbling growl, coming from inside the trailer. The growl stopped me cold. It was deep, primal, and it resonated through the metal of the trailer like a drumbeat in my chest. My hand froze on the latch, my instinct screaming at me to get back in the cab and keep driving. But curiosity clawed at me. What could Pete possibly have put in there? What could make a sound like that? I leaned closer, pressing my ear against the cool metal. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a soft shuffling sound, like something dragging itself across the floor of the trailer. I could hear breathing now, low and heavy, and something that sounded like claws scraping against wood. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. I knew I should leave, lock the trailer back up, and keep going. But my hand had a mind of its own. Before I could stop myself, I yanked the latch up and threw open the doors. The flashlight beam sliced through the darkness of the trailer, illuminating stacks of boxes and crates, but I couldn't see anything that could make that noise. I stepped up onto the trailer's lip, shining the light around. Nothing moved. Just as I was about to turn back, I saw it. In the far corner, behind a stack of crates, something shifted. I squinted, trying to make out the shape. It looked like a person. But not quite. Too big, too hunched over. Hello. I called out, my voice wavering. Then it moved fast. A blur of shadows and movement. I stumbled back, dropping the flashlight, and fell hard onto the gravel. The light rolled into the trailer, flickering wildly as it went. For a moment, I saw it clearly. Eyes. Bright yellow, reflecting the light like a cat's, staring back at me with an intensity that chilled me to the bone. Then it was gone, back into the darkness. The flashlight went out. I scrambled to my feet, slamming the trailer doors shut with a bang. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the latch back into place. Whatever was in there, it was staying in there. I ran back to the cab, practically diving into the driver's seat and slamming the door shut behind me. I grabbed the keys, my hands fumbling as I tried to shove them into the ignition. I glanced at the side mirror and saw the hitchhiker again, standing right behind the trailer now, his face still hidden by the brim of his hat. But he wasn't moving. Just watching. Waiting. The engine roared to life, and I didn't waste a second. I slammed my foot on the gas and tore down the road. The truck fishtailed, gravel flying, but I didn't care. I just wanted to get away. The CB radio crackled again. "Driver, you shouldn't have looked," the voice said, a different one this time, calm and slow. "Now you've seen it, and it's seen you." "What the hell is this?" I shouted into the radio, panic tightening my throat. "Who are you people?" But all I got back was static. I drove for what felt like hours, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The road seemed endless, winding deeper into the woods. I had no idea where I was anymore. The GPS was still dead, and my phone had no signal. I kept glancing in the mirrors, half expecting to see those yellow eyes staring back at me. But there was nothing. Just the road, stretching out behind me like a black ribbon. Then, up ahead, I saw headlights. A truck was parked on the side of the road, its hazard lights blinking. As I got closer, I could see a figure waving me down, a woman with long dark hair. She was standing in front of the truck, her arms flailing, trying to get my attention. I slowed down, my heart racing. She looked terrified, her face pale in the glow of the headlights. She was mouthing something, but I couldn't make out the words. I pulled up beside her, rolling down the window just enough to hear her. "Please, you have to help me," she shouted, her voice panicked. Something attacked my driver. "We need to get out of here." I hesitated. Everything in me screamed not to trust her. But she looked so scared, and I didn't want to leave her out here alone. "Get in," I yelled. "Hurry." She ran around to the passenger side and climbed in, slamming the door behind her. Her hands were shaking, and she kept looking back down the road. "What happened?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know," she said, breathless. "We were just driving, and then it came out of nowhere. It attacked him, dragged him off into the woods." I glanced at her, trying to gauge if she was telling the truth. Her eyes were wide, her face pale, but something about her seemed off. Her hands were clean, not a speck of dirt or blood on them, even though she said she'd been out there for a while. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice low. She hesitated, just for a moment. "Molly," she said finally. "My name's Molly." But something in the way she said it didn't sit right with me. I nodded, gripping the wheel tighter. "All right, Molly. Just hang on. We'll get out of here." I hit the gas, speeding down the road. I glanced at her again, and she was staring straight ahead, her face blank. Her eyes, they didn't seem scared anymore. They seemed hungry. Molly was silent beside me, her breathing too steady, too calm. I could feel her eyes on me, studying, calculating. The road stretched on, and I kept one hand close to the door handle, just in case. Then, I noticed something strange. Her reflection in the windshield, it wasn't quite right. Her mouth wasn't moving, but I could hear breathing, low and ragged, coming from somewhere. The radio hissed and crackled again, and I heard that whispering voice, "She's not who she says she is." I jerked my head to the side to look at her directly, but she was still staring straight ahead, her face expressionless. I felt a cold sweat break out across my forehead. I needed to think to get her out of the truck, but I couldn't just stop. Not on this road, not with whatever was behind us, or maybe even ahead of us. Then she spoke again, but her voice was different now, lower, almost a growl. "Why did you open the trailer?" I felt my blood turn to ice. "How do you know about that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She turned slowly to face me, her eyes now completely black. "You've let it out," she said, her voice a guttural whisper. "And now it's hungry." Without warning, she lunged at me, her hands clawing at my face. I swerved, the truck veering dangerously close to the edge of the road. I fought her off, my heart racing, and then I saw it, a figure standing in the middle of the road, right in our path. I yanked the wheel to the side, trying to avoid hitting them, and the truck skidded off the road, crashing through the underbrush. I felt the world spin, metal crunching, and then everything went black. I woke up with a pounding headache, my vision blurry. The cab was tilted on its side, and I could smell gasoline. I pushed myself up, groaning, and looked over to where Molly had been. She was gone. The passenger door was open, swinging slightly in the wind. I climbed out, my legs shaky. The forest was silent, too silent. I glanced around, trying to get my bearings. The trailer had come loose in the crash, and one of the doors was hanging open. I felt my heart sink. I turned back toward the road and saw them. Figures, emerging from the trees, slowly, methodically. Their eyes were all black, just like Molly's. They moved in unison, their footsteps eerily synchronized. I backed up, my mind racing. I had to get out of here. But there was nowhere to go. And then I heard it again, the low growl, coming from the trees. Those yellow eyes, gleaming in the dark, watching me. I knew in that moment, I was not getting out of this alive. I knew I had two choices, stand my ground against the figures or run into the woods. The figures were closing in, their black eyes locked on me, mouth slightly open as if tasting the air. The growl from the trees grew louder, more insistent. I didn't have time to think. I bolted toward the trees, away from the figures. Branches whipped at my face as I crashed through the underbrush. My lungs burned, but I kept running, the growling getting closer. I glanced over my shoulder and saw the figures standing at the edge of the woods, not following. It was almost like they were afraid of what lay deeper within. But I had no choice. I kept running until my legs gave out and I collapsed onto a patch of cold, damp earth. I leaned back against a tree, catching my breath, my heart pounding in my ears. Then, I heard it, soft footsteps approaching. I held my breath, pressing myself tighter against the tree. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was Pete. Pete. I gasped, relief washing over me. But Pete's face was drawn, eyes hollow, his skin pale as if he hadn't seen the sun in days. He glanced around nervously, then back at me. You shouldn't have come, he whispered, his voice trembling. I told you not to open the trailer. Now you've let it out. What is it, Pete? What the hell is going on? I demanded, fear giving way to anger. He shook his head, stepping closer. It's something old, something that feeds on fear and darkness. The people who hired me, they were desperate. They wanted it moved, hidden away. I didn't know it would be like this. I grabbed him by the collar. Why did you drag me into this? Tears welled up in his eyes. I thought I could escape it. But it always finds you. Once you see it, once you know, it never lets you go. Before I could say another word, the growl came again, louder this time. Pete's eyes widened with terror. Run, he whispered. Run and don't look back. I didn't need to be told twice. I took off again, crashing through the underbrush, Pete following close behind. The growl turned into a roar, and I could hear something crashing through the trees behind us, moving fast, too fast. My lungs screamed for air, my legs ached, but I kept going. Pete stumbled and fell, and I skidded to a stop, turning back to help him. But then I saw it, a shape dark and hulking, emerging from the trees. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, its form shrouded in shadow, almost as if it were made of the darkness itself. Pete screamed, a blood-curdling sound that sent shivers down my spine. Don't look at it, he yelled. Keep running. I did as he said, tearing my eyes away and sprinting deeper into the woods. Behind me, I heard a wet tearing sound, and Pete's scream abruptly cut off. My stomach twisted in fear, but I kept going, the trees blurring around me. I burst into a small clearing, my heart racing. I could hear the thing behind me, its footsteps heavy, thudding against the earth. I looked around, desperate for anything I could use to defend myself. My eyes landed on an old, rusted shovel lying half-buried in the dirt. I grabbed it, turning just as the creature burst into the clearing. It was massive, a twisted amalgamation of shadows and something else, something almost human. Its mouth was filled with sharp, gleaming teeth, and its eyes, those eyes bored into me, filled with hunger and hatred. I swung the shovel with all my strength, but the creature batted it aside effortlessly, sending me stumbling backward. It lunged at me, and I felt a sharp pain in my side as its claws raked across my skin. I screamed, but then I remembered Pete's words, "Don't look at it." I forced my eyes away, staring at the ground, and felt its breath on my neck, hot and foul. I heard a whisper in my ear, a voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "You saw me," it hissed. "You know what I am. You cannot leave." My mind raced. "What do you want?" I croaked, barely able to breathe through the pain. "To feed," it replied. "On fear, on pain, on the darkness in your soul." I closed my eyes, thinking of everything that had led me here, my desperation, my poor choices, my constant running from one bad decision to the next. "If I leave, will you let me go?" I asked. There was a pause, and then the whisper came again, softer this time. "A trade, your fear for freedom. But you must walk away and never look back." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. "Deal." The creature pulled back, its breath no longer hot on my skin. Slowly, I forced myself to stand, not daring to look up. I took a step forward, then another, each one a battle against my instinct to run, to look, to scream. The air around me felt thick, almost suffocating. I could feel the creature's eyes on me, boring into my back, but I kept moving. One foot in front of the other. I reached the edge of the clearing and stepped into the trees. The whispering stopped. The air grew lighter, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't dare look back. The forest began to thin, and I found myself on another road, an old cracked highway I didn't recognize. I kept walking, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. The sun was starting to rise, casting a dim light over the landscape. I walked for miles, never daring to stop, until I saw a gas station in the distance. Relief flooded me, and I quickened my pace, finally feeling the fear begin to ebb. I reached the gas station and collapsed by the door. The attendant, a middle-aged man with a kind face, rushed over. "Hey, are you all right?" I need help," I stammered, my voice raw. "There's something in the woods." He nodded, his expression grim. "You're not the first to come out of there saying that." The attendant helped me inside, sat me down, and gave me some water. As I drank, I noticed a bulletin board on the wall, covered with photos of missing people. My heart sank when I saw Pete's picture among them, his face younger, less haunted. "How long has he been missing?" I asked, pointing to the photo. The attendant glanced at the picture and sighed. "That one? Been at least a decade. Folks say he disappeared on that road you came from, same way you did." My blood ran cold.
10 years? How was that possible?
I stood up, dizzy, and stumbled toward the door. The air outside felt different, too warm for the early morning. I caught my reflection in the glass and froze. My hair was streaked with gray, my face lined with wrinkles that hadn't been there before. I turned back to the attendant. Where am I?
He looked at me, puzzled.
You're off Old Holler's route. Lots of folks get lost there.
Wie come back?
I felt my stomach drop. The Old Holler's route. It was a place I'd heard of, whispered about in trucker bars. A place where people vanished, where time twisted in on itself. I thought it was just an urban legend. I backed away, feeling a rising sense of dread. I needed to get out of there. I found a trucker in the parking lot, an older woman with a face like leather. I told her my story, and she listened quietly, then offered me a ride. But you need to promise me one thing, she said, her eyes serious.
Anything, I replied. Don't look back, she said. Not once.
I nodded, climbing into her cab. We drove in silence, the road stretching out ahead of us, the woods on either side pressing close. As we drove, I felt a strange sensation, like a pressure building in my chest. I wanted to look back, to see if the creature was still there, watching. But I remembered the trucker's words, and I kept my eyes fixed ahead. We passed an old sign barely readable, but I caught a glimpse of the words, "Welcome back to the living." I shuddered, gripping the seat. The trucker glanced at me, her face expressionless. You're almost there, she murmured. Just a little further. Hours seemed to pass. The landscape never changed. The same trees, the same road. My eyes began to droop, exhaustion taking over, but I fought to stay awake. Then, in the distance, I saw it. A figure, standing in the middle of the road. I felt a chill run down my spine.
It was the hitchhiker.
The one I'd seen before. But how? He raised a hand, as if beckoning. The trucker didn't slow down.
Don't look, she whispered.
I kept my eyes ahead, gripping the seat, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, the truck veered off the road and pulled into a rest stop. The trucker turned to me. This is as far as I go, she said. I nodded, thanking her, and got out. The rest stop was deserted, but it felt normal. I took a deep breath, relieved to be away from that road, and walked toward the bathroom to wash up. Inside the bathroom, I splashed water on my face, looking at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My face was older, but it was still me. I felt a surge of hope. Maybe I'd made it out. Then, in the reflection, I saw something move behind me. Slowly, I turned around. The door was open, and outside I saw the hitchhiker, just standing there staring. I froze. My breath caught in my throat.
No, I whispered. No, no, no.
I backed away, trying to keep my eyes on him, but my foot hit something. I looked down and saw a small old sign on the ground, "Welcome to Holler's Rest, stay forever."
Panic flooded me.
I turned and ran out of the bathroom, but the hitchhiker was gone.
The trucker was gone. The road was gone.
All that remained was the forest, dark and endless. I heard it again, the whispering voice, coming from all around me.
You didn't keep your promise, it hissed. You looked back.
I felt tears in my eyes, fear coursing through my veins. Please, I begged. Let me go. The voice laughed, low and cruel. There is no going back.
Not now.
I ran again, deeper into the woods, my legs aching, my breath coming in short gasps. The trees seemed to close in around me, the darkness pressing tighter. I stumbled, falling to my knees, and the whispering grew louder. I closed my eyes, covering my ears, trying to block it out, but it was everywhere, all around me. I opened my eyes and saw it again, the creature, standing just a few feet away, its eyes glowing in the darkness. Why won't you leave me alone?
I screamed.
It stepped closer, and I felt the air grow cold. Because you belong to me now, it whispered. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I was trapped with no way out. But then I remembered Pete's words, "Don't look at it." I forced my eyes shut, trying to block it out, to think of anything but the creature. I heard it growl, felt its presence loom closer, but I kept my eyes closed. I stood up slowly, my eyes still shut tight. "I'm not afraid of you," I whispered, more to myself than to it. The growling stopped, and the air grew warmer. I opened my eyes, and the creature was gone. The forest was still dark, but the path ahead seemed clearer somehow, less oppressive. I took a step forward, then another and another, until I was running again, the fear slowly fading away. I kept running until I saw it, a light in the distance, faint but real. I pushed myself harder, and the light grew brighter. I stumbled out of the woods and found myself back on the road. I collapsed onto the asphalt, gasping for air, the sky above me clear and bright. I heard a car approaching and waved frantically. The car stopped, and a kind-faced woman leaned out of the window. "Need a ride?" she asked. I nodded, too exhausted to speak. She helped me into the car, and I closed my eyes, feeling a deep sense of relief. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital room, and 4 in my arm. A nurse smiled down at me. "You're lucky," she said. "A trucker found you by the side of the road. You were in pretty bad shape." I nodded weakly, my mind reeling. "How long have I been here?"
I croaked. 2 days, she replied. "Rest now. You're safe." Safe.
The word felt foreign, but I let myself believe it, just for a moment. Over the next few weeks, I recovered, but something inside me had changed. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still being watched, still being followed. Every shadow seemed too long, every whisper too close. I tried to go back to normal life, but it was impossible. I kept having dreams, of the forest, the creature, and those yellow eyes. One day, I received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a small, old photograph of Pete, standing by a truck. On the back, in faded ink, were the words, "Don't forget." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew what it meant. I could never truly leave the road behind. It was a part of me now, a shadow that would always follow. I decided to face it. I climbed into my truck, feeling the familiar hum of the engine beneath me. I pulled out onto the highway, driving without a destination, just moving. The road stretched out before me, long and dark, but I felt a strange sense of peace. I would keep driving, keep